Hey, this is Mike from 424recording.com. Direct guitars versus amped guitars. What are the advantages or disadvantages of each? And in the end, which is better? You can get a solid, clean sound that can be reamped very easily when you use direct guitars. If you're recording direct into the 4-track, you can also distort the preamps very easily and have a lot of control over the distortion. You can also use the EQs in post to dial in different sounds or cut frequencies that you weren't able to dial in with your guitar tone knobs or volume knobs. Direct in with the guitar is also quiet for your surroundings and your environment. You don't have to worry about waking people up or annoying people or being really loud if you care about that kind of a thing. It's easy to record at 3 a.m. in your apartment building and not have anybody get PO'd. Another advantage of direct guitars is that it's really easy to put a pedal in front of it, such as the Sans amp, to get a great direct-in sound. I've used this to my advantage on Little Wiser, a Be Cool Cowboy track I often reference when it comes to my Sans amp and 4-track. Direct guitars don't always work for the sound of the song that you want to go for. Direct guitars may sound too close in the headphones, and they might be harder to mix and harder to push backwards in your mix. If you don't like the pickups in your guitar, chances are you're not going to dig the direct sound your guitar gets. Overall, I'd say direct guitars tend to have a cheaper sound, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. String age will also become a greater factor when recording direct in. So with an amp, you can get a solid, clean sound that'll be really easy to reamp in post if that's what you want to do, or you'll just get a very solid, clean sound to work with. If you like the sound of your amp, you'll like the sound of your guitar mic'd. Additionally, you can use your amp settings to dial in a sound that you like, or the exact sound that you want. You can move the mic closer and further back from the amp to mix in different distances, or to get the type of reverb sound you want, or to get your guitar sitting in the mix where you want it to be sitting. I personally enjoy recording with the amp in the room. Some people say it's harder to hear what you're recording like this, but I like the vibe of the amp in the room and feeling the amp, feeling the speakers push air in the room. I like that. It can be very loud if you're in close proximity to others. You often have to crank an amp to get a great sound out of it, at least when it comes to tube amps. If you don't like the sound of your amp, you're not going to like the sound of an amp guitar no matter what you do to it. That starting basis for your amp guitar sound is always going to be your hands, your guitar, and your amp. So make sure you have a good sounding amp if that's the route you're going, but also make sure you practice and make sure you have a guitar that you like the sound of. In post, there's less possibilities to change the sound that you recorded. Sure, if you have a clean sound, you can reamp it, but at the end of the day, who wants to go through the trouble? You might as well figure out what sound you want before you even record. I guess in other words, what I'm trying to say is it's going to be harder to change the sound when you record it through an amp, especially if you have some sort of distortion on it, overdrive, etc. But this can also be a good thing. As I mentioned, if you get it right at the recording phase, you'll have a lot less to do in the mixing phase of your song. Amp hum can also be a negative factor if you don't prefer the sound of that. I personally enjoy the sound of amp hum, but many people do not. And lastly, miking the amp, if you're not familiar with guitar amp miking, can curb your creativity if you have to stop everything to figure out where the best sound in miking your cab is. Chances are if you're amping guitars, you may already know where the best spot to put your mic is on your guitar amp, but in case you're a novice or just don't want to go through the trouble of that when inspiration strikes, obviously it's a lot easier to go direct in if you have an idea than it is to set up your amp and dial it in, etc. So, the big question of the day then is, which is better? Well, that really depends on what your needs are. If you want close sounding guitars that are punctuated and clean, go direct. If you want guitars that are further back in the mix and have more of a live feel, try the amp. Again, it all depends on what you need for your mix and what sounds best to you. Only you can determine which is better and in which situation. This is Mike from 424recording.com. Godspeed, my friend. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, you nerd. Now go out there, try some direct guitars, try some amp guitars. Figure out what works best for you. You're the only one that can determine that. Peace.